He was on the ice probably a lot earlier than usual. It is funny, Dudnik, who I think everybody knows, I love the guy. I love shooting the breeze with him. But it's weird with so many players in training camp and us doing it at TRIA. Essentially, it's they bring up the players for interviews every day. We've been in the locker room once since camp started.
Really?
So I really have not had, other than, pleasantries as he's walking by in his gear. I've not had one conversation with him yet in training camp. So it's bizarre to me because he's the guy that in the locker room, usually
he wants to talk to you.
Yeah, like usually I'll walk in the locker room and it just like sort of, it's kind of like when I used to like all of a sudden wind up at Bugard's stall. It's like, it's just, you sort of like just naturally, next thing you just kind of walk over to Dudnik because he's just the guy that you can lean against the wall and shoot the breeze with for 10 minutes. So it's just kind of weird. So I don't have a lot of intel on how Dudnik's doing right now.
From Jared Midley and also Satch, basically, what's up with the Wild offer sheet to Mitch Marner?
It's not true.
Yep.
That's what's up with it. Yep. It's just unbelievable. That's my problem with Twitter is a former player just decides to tweet something and it just becomes gospel. Like every team in the league, I'm sure. Paul Fenton did have a conversation with Ferris, Marner's agent. There was never an offer sheet presented. It was just kind of like everything. Like I'm sure Bill Guerin's done with Liney and Connor's people and whoever. You call up the agent, what are you looking for? That's a far cry from actually putting together the structure of an offer sheet. The Wild never, ever got to a point where they structured a deal that was going to be able to get that done. That's just an absolute fact. And the other thing is that you sign Marner and you're giving up 4 first-round picks. I just think that's probably look, I think Marner's exactly the type of player that they need. And to me, if they did present him an offer sheet and somehow Toronto didn't match and the Wild had to give up 4 first-round picks, from my personal standpoint, for a young stud like that, I'd be like, well, that's the price of doing business. I don't think that's a bad thing. But it is contrary to what Paul Fenton said that he wanted to do with this team, which is kind of build through the draft. But the reality is the Wild have never, ever, 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 ever drafted a player like Mitch Marner. So I don't know if giving up 4 first-round picks is that big a risk that a lot of people seem to think it is. But regardless, it never happened. Structure-wise, cap-wise, it just would have been extremely difficult for this team to be able to do that. All you need is a calculator to figure that out. So.
Let's get a final thought from Michael. Thank you all for being here. We do appreciate it. Thank you.
By the way, one thing that we didn't do in the old days that still bothers me to the day that just comes up in this Twitter world is refute others. A lot of times if like you were covering a team and somebody else put out wrong information, you just, it's like you just didn't comment on it. Yep. Like, if it's true, I'll write it and confirm it and report on it. But if it's not true, I'm not going to refute it. And that's what makes it difficult because, I like Matthew Barnaby. I'm not doubting at all what he's been told. But I think there was a little hyperbole on the agent's part, or however this got out. That the Wild and Columbus were maybe the two that did it. I can just tell you that it just didn't happen. I do know that Paul Fenton had a conversation with him to just say, what are you looking for? This is maybe where we could go. But that is a far cry from actually sitting down and trying to figure out a structure that could actually, 1, win an offer sheet battle, 2, get Marner presented to Marner. So it's just inaccurate. And the only reason why I'm sensitive to it is because it just wastes my time during the day. It's like you just wake up, you look at Twitter, and you're like, gotta sit there and now call sources to find out, like, hey, I broke every single story with the Wild all summer, but did I somehow miss the biggest story of them all? The Wild actually presented an offer sheet to an absolute superstar. And trust me, the sources inside the organization that would have to know laughed at it. So.
Let's get a final thought from Michael. Thanks to Tin Shed, thanks to Twill, thanks to Fixology Repair, thanks to Tony Hoagland and Bite Squad. Final thought, Michael.
That was kind of my final thought. I'm still thinking about it. So,
do you have a final follow-up thought on your final thought?
No.
Is there anything I can say to make you feel uncomfortable right now?
No. I will just say this. The rest of camp, it's wrapping up quickly. It's crazy. Camp used to. I was telling. I can't remember which player was telling about this in the locker room when we were in there yesterday. But camp used to be long. It was like 24, 25 days. I remember as a beat writer, the first week you'd write about prospects because you sort of needed to waste stories, essentially, before you delved into the team. And now you can't do that anymore. And it's crazy because of all these lockouts and new CBAs and things, the one win, if you want to call it a win for players, is that they have trimmed training camp down to a short, precious days. And it's crazy how quickly camp's going to end here. So the one thing that needs to happen here is they have to take advantage of if they put together their 28-man teams and play mostly NHL lineups in Denver and Dallas and in the home game against Colorado on Saturday, and they are losing like they're losing tonight, that's the time to actually start to get worried. I mean, they've got to figure out a way to get serious here and start playing well. And so far we've seen some good signs in these scrimmages. But the one sign that hasn't changed is they still can't score. There's still these scrimmages are 1-0 every night. Last night, grade A chances, outchance an inferior lineup 3-1, and just cannot bury the puck. And that's not a fluke. I mean, this team was shut out 11 times last year, so that's the one thing here for the rest of camp that I'd want to see from the Wild is getting serious and tuning up for the season and not going through the motions. And so we'll see if that can happen.
Thanks to our producer, Brandon Morton. Thanks to my wife for coming out and putting up with this nonsense. And thank you all for showing up. We do appreciate it. Please give Michael a hand, and we'll hope to see you October 1st.
Pretty little city built on a hillside. Music in the bars and fire in the sky. To the beach and it was covered in ice, and I used to call it home. So much coming out, there's nothing going on.